What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing an update to the budget build for Red Dragon Archfiend. Now the reason for this update is because this bad boy right here, Bystial Dispatter, has rocketed through the roof to £30 a copy. So I thought I'd bring you an updated build that if you are looking to get this deck and pick up free structure decks and then put in minimal investment, what you can do and how the build will look. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. I'll also show you some other budget alternatives that will make it for an even cheaper investment or pretty much free. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile and show you exactly what we've got. So, starting with all the cards that come in the structure deck, we are starting off with a pretty standard lineup of triple Soul Resonator, followed by triple Crimson, double Synchron, and double Vision. I'm also teching in one Red Resonator. Now, arguably, if you're teching in this single copy of Red Resonator, you could cut Synchron or Vision back down to one. But what I quite like about this is if you are getting to a grinded game, because this is a new type of deck, then you do have an ability to win in time, opposed to something like Scarlight, which you would still play anyway because that card's just absolutely amazing. Entirely up to you on the Red Resonator, you can completely sack it off if you want to. Continuing through with what else is included in the structure deck, of course, triple Bone Archfiend. This card's the best one in my opinion. Your other options are, of course, your Wandering Wild Winged, which comes in the structure deck, and then two that do not come in the structure deck but are incredibly cheap, and that is Salamander Catalyzer and the Obsessive Overloop. Now, the reason that both of these are really cool additions to the deck and really cheap is your Salamander can become a non-tuner or a tuner because all you need to do is reveal a Fiend monster in your hand and then special summon one of them and discard the other. When a monster is destroyed by battle involving your Fiend monster while this card's in the graveyard, you get to add it back from the graveyard to the hand. Overloop is probably a little bit better when you do have Bystial Dispatter involved, but Overloop still gives you that ability to banish some of your cards and then add this back to the hand as a free level 4 tuner extender should your opponent constantly keep stopping your tuners, book a moon in them, you name it. So these cards are obviously not in the structure yet, whereas the rest are. So it's still really cheap at this moment in time because if anything, if you've got a really good friend, they can probably give you these for free. So that's it for the monsters that are in the structure deck. Now the cards are not in the structure deck from the monsters are of course the Bystials. So I've tried to keep this at a minimal engine of the one Lubellion, the one Magnamute, one Baldrake, one Saronir, Beast, and Regained. So this is a very minimal 6-card engine. The one that costs the most money out of all of these is Lubellion at the moment. And if you look at the right place, you can probably pick up a Lubellion for about £8. Maybe 10 at a push, but even then you are not breaking the bank. Magnamute itself is probably about £4 depending on where you're looking. And if you have the right friend, they can probably chuck in a common Baldrake, a Super Saronir, a Beast, and a Regain for like £5, if not less. The only one that really costs some money is, of course, the Druid Swarm, and that is the one that costs about £10 on its own, if not a little bit more. And I feel that if you're going to be putting £10 into the Bystial engine at any point, Lubellion is definitely the one to go to in comparison. Now, this, in my opinion, is the better option because it is a bit more aggressive and it does help you with your higher level synchro plays. However, I do understand that this engine would probably cost about £15 to £20 just on its own. So if you are on a tighter budget, what other options do you have? Well, very easily, this 6 cards can become hand traps in the form of Ash Blossoms and Imperms post the anniversary set. Or if you want to maintain the aggressive nature of still being able to produce monsters on the board, it can very easily become the Supai engine. Or, because of this particular build, we want to focus on level 8s a little bit more, it can become the Acasta and the Ant, which came in the structure deck. So you would play 3 Acasta, 1 Ant, and then for the remaining 2 cards, that can very easily be Ash Blossoms, Veilers, depending on what you have access to. I still feel that you could arguably count this lineup for the Bystials as a budget, which is why I'm displaying them in this particular build. Moving back to cards that are included in the structure deck, of course, you are going to be playing triple Resonator Cool, triple Crimson Gaia, one Absolute Power Force. I feel the best way of playing this deck in a version without Bystial Dispatter is to go all-out aggression, and the reason for that is we are also playing triple Burning Soul. Now, the reason you're playing triple Burning Soul is this gives you the ability to utilize Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity during your turn. Now, the reason you want to do this, obviously Burning Soul can let you do this during your opponent's turn as well, which gives you the best of going first and second. But the reason you would want to do this is if you can make this early enough, you shut off all of your opponent's effects, and then you're able to continue to push through for an OTK play. So that's the reason why you want to utilize Burning Soul in this build, especially when you're not utilizing the destruction effect, the resource management effect, and the negation effect of your Bystial Dispatter. The last cards that are still in the, or the last card that is in the structure deck is Red Zone. One that isn't in the structure deck is Red Screen, but this currently I picked up on eBay for like 75p. So you have the right friend and you get these early enough before they rocket, which I doubt they will because you only need to play one of them, and it is specific to this deck, then it's definitely a great card to have. Now, moving on to the other spells that are not included in the structure deck but are still great additions to the deck, I've decided to go with triple Book of Eclipse. Really, really cheap, really easy, and a great board breaker against most of the meta decks out there. And even with a deck like this, especially when you're putting everything to defense, yes, I know Crimson Gaia does that anyway, but by the time Crimson Gaia attempts to do that, you need to be in your battle phase and you need to be declaring an attack with a Red Dragon Archfiend, whereas Book of Eclipse gives you that ability to do stuff like this during the draw phase, meaning that you don't really feel threatened by anything your opponent has on the board, as they are then going to need to trade and negate for a Book of Eclipse, or if they do get that lucky Ash Blossom, they will use an Ash Blossom on Eclipse, still meaning that the rest of your plays are free to go. Of course, one Call by the Grave and one Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is actually really quite good in this deck and something that you need to be aware of, and I'll explain this as I've done in the test hands. Bone Archfiend sends from the hand or field as cost. It does not send from the deck as cost, it targets as cost. So the big thing about this is, which is why you'll see a lot of people when they play this deck, is they actually choose, when they have the option to search out the Crimson Resonator and then send it from the hand to the graveyard with Bone Archfiend, because it does it as cost, so it's already there. Whereas if it's on the field and Bone Archfiend gets stopped, it can't put Crimson Resonator to the graveyard, which is what you really, really want it to do. And that's where Foolish Burial comes into play, because if this does get stopped, you can Foolish Burial put this to the graveyard, but you can also Foolish Burial your Vision Resonator, and that will then give you direct access to your Crimson Gaia, which allows you to build your combo from that one card onwards. Moving on to the extra deck. Now, 99% of this extra deck is all included in the structure deck. 2 cards are not, and they're just very, very cheap and easy cards to pick up. So of course we are starting off with triple Red Rising. This is your go-to. This is the card that you can make off the back of the Supai combo, which is why in this particular build the Ant combo might be a little bit better, because you do play more level 8s that are going to be more effective for you to the board. The one Cully Belt, so this is not included in the structure deck, but it's a common from Dune. Your friend can give you this for free. Then of course we've got 2 Scarred and 2 Red Dragon Archfiend. So obviously the rarities I'm showing you in this profile do not reflect the rarities that you will need to pay for. I've just enjoyed this deck a lot, that I've actually upgraded most of it. But you get these in the structure deck anyway. Really, really kind of cool cards. And the only ones we've really doubled up in the place of the 2 Bystial Dispatters is Scarred, and we've added in the Hot Red Archfiend King Calamity as well. So then of course you've got the 1 Starlight, you've got your 2 Abysses. The one that is also not included in the structure deck is the Neversoul Dragon. You don't have to get this. It costs me like £2.50 on eBay, if that. But what makes this pretty cool is it's a nice 4K boss monster that you can go into as an alternative to something like Bane, clear off 2 cards, and push further forward. Your OTK route is to have the board with strong boss monsters and then use your Scarred to clear all of your attack position monsters on your opponent's board, Red Dragon Archfiend to clear all of the defense position monsters, and then the remainder of the monsters are just going to push in for that game. Which is why if you're able to combo off something like a piercing damage off the back of Red Dragon Archfiend, plus your Neversoul and then a Hot Red Archfiend Bane, you're going to be getting pretty much game 99% of the time. And if you don't finish the game off during that battle phase, as long as you leave yourself with the ability to make a level 8 in the form of Starlight, which is why the Ant combo is a little bit more successful, because it can very easily get you into your Starlight. Unfortunately, it cannot get you into your Scarred, but it can get you into the Red Dragon Archfiend. And the reason it can't get you into the Scarred is because it needs a Dark, and annoyingly, Ant is an Earth as the non-tuner. So once you've kind of built your board there, that's when of course you can start looking into a aggressive Red Supernova that can banish the board twice, because it is a soft once per turn. And if you were to make this going first and you feel that the double banish effect off of the back of Red Supernova is going to be effective enough, then you'll have the ability of your Red Zone. And the way this works is you use Supernova to banish the board and banish itself, then you use Red Zone to bring it back, and then you use Red Supernova to banish it again. And then the final card is, of course, the King Calamities. Now, what you're going to want to be doing like this, as I said with the Burning Soul, the only reason we're playing this is because of Burning Soul. So if you do take that out, then of course you don't play King Calamity. But the idea behind that is you have the ability to King Calamity during your opponent's turn. So you've got a very nice turn skip going first. But then it also gives you the ability to protect your stuff when you're going second. When you're going second, especially if you're on a budget, one thing you need to be fearful of is your opponent will possibly have access to stuff like Nibiru's, Draw and Lock Birds, which is why I call the Graves in there, and then other ways to try and stop you. The deck can play through one or two interruptions in the forms of Imperms, Veilers, Ashes, Bells, because it does have that ability to open up its own extenders anyway. And what you're really doing when you're activating something like a Soul Resonator is you're saying to your opponent, okay, cool. If you do not know this deck, this could be one of my weak spots, and a lot of people will try and shotgun their effects early if they are unfamiliar with the deck, and that's when you will come out on top. Obviously, the Achilles heels of the deck is your Crimson Resonator when it's trying to be revived from the graveyard, and your Red Rising, because this is when they can be stopped, and then you need additional extenders in the hand just to help you go that little bit further. So that is why your King Calamity comes into play, and why Burning Soul is also an effective card, because it's one of the ones that you could, of course, if your opponent tries to activate something, you chain Burning Soul, you add the card that they're trying to maybe banish with a DD Crow or a Bystial back to the hand, and if you have the right levels, you can then instantly Synchro Summon. If not, you're still able to dodge that ability of a Bystial hitting the board, and you're still able to continue to build your board in a sense as well. So that's it for the updated budget build. I've tried to keep this tidy and neat and everything else included in the structure deck. I will just do a final roundup just so you can see all of the cards or the amount of cards that are not in the structure deck. And shockingly, it's actually very, very few. And very few of them are actually expensive at all, especially if you have the right friends. So as you can see, it's one trap card. It's my selective lineup of Book of Eclipse. You don't even need to play that if you don't want to. I just quite like it as a nice board breaking option. Foolish Burial, Called by the Grave, and then pretty much the Bystial package. The Bystial package is obviously the one that is going to cost the most, but very simply, if you're buying 3 structure decks for around about £30, and you see the amount of cards we actually use at 3 ofs, if you haven't got them previously, is of course Resonator Call, Crimson Gaia, Burning Soul, Crimson Resonator, Bone Archfiend, all of those cards you're playing at free, so you're definitely getting the value out of buying 3 structure decks. The other 2 cards that are not in the structure decks are of course these 2 here. So as you can see, it's 2 cards from your extra deck. That means you get 13 extra deck cards with the structure decks anyway, and then it's a total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. It's like literally just over a quarter of the deck you need to buy. And even then, I reckon if you've got the right friend that's got the Bystial spares because they bought a couple of Megatins, they might very easily say, here you go, you can have all of this, including the extra deck cards, for 20 quid. So you now have a full-on competitive deck for 50 quid. Very easy. So that's like $60, $70. Now, it's not competitive in the sense that this exact build will win you a regional, but it's competitive in the sense that it can be very aggressive, it can be very defensive, and it will get you some wins at the local environment without having to splash huge amounts of cash to upgrade them. And that is the one thing that I highly applaud Konami for, is the fact that their structure decks have actually gotten better over time. You look all the way back to Branded, you can look at Salamangreats, ABCs, even Trap Tricks, you name it, Dark Worlds, they're all really good and ready to go from the structure decks. It just depends on how much more you want to add to it. Like I said, if you didn't want to invest in the Bystial engine, then of course you do have access to the Supai. Now Supai only has 1 target to come from the extra deck, and that is of course going to be your Red Rising, which is great to do. But if you only open up these and you can't discard something like a Crimson Dragon to the graveyard, then it becomes pointless. If you're able to discard a Crimson Dragon to the graveyard, then this combo, Supai discard Crimson Dragon, is golden, because straight away you go, cool, not even using my normal summon, make Red Rising brings back the Crimson Resonator, and then off I go, full combo. So it can be really, really good, but you need to open up 2 very specific cards. It doesn't work if you're trying to send a Vision Resonator off this with as minimal cards. Yes, it will give you the Crimson Gaia and everything else to push on from that point, but it does get a little bit more difficult. So there are ways to do it. You just want to make sure you minimize all of the forms of interaction that your opponent can try and stop you with. So Supai would be my first go-to, and if you're like, all right, Kirill, we want to be a bit more aggressive, then you can naturally use the Akasta engine that came with the structure deck. So it's giving you the best of everything possible. I really do love this deck. I think it has so many different like aggressive outputs. I love the fact it can be aggressive, it can be defensive. I do feel that the only thing that is missing from it is the fact of having an out and out defensive play. One thing as well to mention, just because I think the Supai engine, the more and more I think about it, the better and better it becomes. It's such a good option because even if you do get nibbed, you can still, like if you hold back the Supai, you hold this back, you build your entire board, you go to the end phase and your opponent nibs you, go, okay, cool. They do all that. You activate Supai. Red Rising is not a hard once per turn. It's a soft once per turn. The only difference is that when you bring back the card from the graveyard and then you sync up, that's when you're only going to be able to get into like a level 8 and you're trying to be as defensive as possible with that level 8 unless you're able to bring back a level 3 and then obviously your Hot Red Abyss will be your option. Still a really cool deck, really enjoy it, can't say that enough. I highly advise you picking up 3 of these structure decks. The only thing the structure decks was missing was a staple hand trap, which I feel that the reason that was held off of is for the pure fact that the Fire King structure deck does have, I think it's Imperm and there's one other card, I think it might be Imperm and Ash. And then also we have the Anniversary Rarity Collection set, which comes out in November, and everyone should be able to get some staples from that because they come in 7 different rarities. So you'll be able to get low rarity ashes, high rarity ashes. Heck, you pull a high rarity ash and you don't want it, you could probably trade it for a set of low rarity imperms, ashes, bells, like every hand trap under the sun, especially if you pull a quarter century rare. But like I said, that is it for the profile. I know I've done a lot of Red Dragon Archfiend content for this channel. I'm trying to minimize it, so I only do like 1 or 2 Red Dragon Archfiend videos a week. Maybe cut that down to being 1. But as long as you guys still want to see it, I will be more than happy to keep producing it for you and then giving you my insight and my knowledge so that you can look at decks like this or other decks on a very similar budget to still be able to build, still be able to enjoy the game and still compete. So for now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.